Hi, honest discussioner here. Ponies Olympics are off for this week, but that doesn't mean that I still don't get to do a little poning.
It's common sense that snakes don't talk.
Yep, he's going to defend this one.
I understand that. But you see, when you're dealing with God, who engages in the supernatural, and you see, that is the thing that you have to remember here, atheists, that when you're dealing with the Bible, you are dealing with the supernatural as well.
Are you talking about the show that's on the CW, or the thing that has never been shown to exist despite how flashy and amazing it's supposed to be?
And here in the book of Genesis, we have Satan possessing a snake. Why should that be an odd thing for you unbelievers?
Because it doesn't happen?
To comprehend a being that is angelic, having this kind of power to possess an animal.
It's not difficult to understand that a being of that power could inhabit the body of a snake. What is difficult to comprehend is that the snake is now able to talk. You can inhabit it and control all you want, but it still doesn't have vocal cords. So if it wasn't using the snake to actually talk, it was just moving it there and then speaking, as in Satan speaking, then why was a snake even necessary in the first place? It should also be interesting to mention that God punishes the snake by having it slither around on its belly, which I'm sure was a very terrible thing for the snake. Maybe it was different back then, sure. But if this was Satan inhabiting the body and forcing the snake to do this, I don't know why he would have punished the snake. Doesn't really, that's what it doesn't add up. And that's the whole issue with your whole supernatural argument. There's a difference between something that is supernatural, like God, healing the blind and the deaf, and something that's just completely implausible to happen, such as God punishing the snake for what Satan did while it was possessing the snake. Unless you think Satan himself is slithering on his belly, and that's it.
You understand it because you probably have The Exorcist on your movie DVD library file.
I've actually never seen it. I'm not a big fan of horror. Sorry.
I mean, how many times do we see evil possessing a human being or possessing something in the movies?
In the movies? Plenty. In reality? Never.
You take God's holy word, and then you take the three little piggies, and you slap them together, and you say, oh, they're the same thing.
I should mention that GEERUP's video is kind of a response to someone else talking about the talking snake and how that's one of his main reasons for thinking the Bible's full of it. And he likens it to the three little pigs because both stories anthropomorphize some or all the characters. And I think it's a bit of a fair criticism since normally they can't talk, and even if you could control them, they still wouldn't be able to do that. And that it could have very well have been that the story of Genesis was not meant to be taken as a literal history, but as a moral argument. And you're going to refute that. How?
Error. You are wrong. They're not the same thing. One's history, and the other is a moral lesson.
Hold on 1 second. No, you're up. I think that's kind of the point of what we're trying to say here is that we don't think the Bible is history or historical, and this is why we don't think it's history. You're using circular reasoning here. You're kind of saying that it's right because it's history, and we're saying that it's not history because this doesn't seem to be right. So you have to explain why this actually makes sense. And you can't just blankly state that it's history, especially since it goes against most of the evidence that we see today.
And you want me to compromise and take the compromised view of God's word and say, well, it's just a form of speech.
No, GEERUP, I don't want you to compromise. I want you to realize that the stories in the Bible do not comport with what we see around us, what we can all see. It doesn't require any faith to see these things. You can go and look for it yourself. The story of Noah's flood does not make any sense and is also repeated in many other different stories that have nothing to do with Christianity or Judaism. The six-day creation account doesn't really make any sense with what we see from reality. So I want you not to compromise, but to realize that your version does not make any sense.
Like so many liberal Christians, if you compromise Genesis, you compromise everything. You compromise your faith, and the atheists know that. And that's what they want you to do.
Actually, no, GEERUP. Quite the opposite. I wish they were all like you. Because your way is just so easy to disprove. I know you don't have any faith in science, despite your consistent use of all the technology that it breeds, but your way is very easy to disprove with that, whereas you take the metaphorical way and it actually starts to mildly conform to the evidence. I think it still doesn't conform to a lot of it, but it's a little harder to pin down. There's too many loopholes to wiggle out of. When it's an analogy, you can say there's 50 different meanings to one thing, and whichever one happens to fit at the moment is the one that can be used. So no, I wish they were. I don't want them to compromise their literalism. I want them to keep that as an example of how wrong you are.
They want you to embrace the scientific naturalism that's spreading like wildfire.
Yeah, who knew the more evidence you had for something, the more people would believe it. Crazy.